Do we have a quorum? 5. Okay, good.
Well, I have all about it. Out there, full authority.
So we'll just ask if we've heard an excused absence for less, when they do roll call.
Do we need that?
I don't know if we should or not.
Okay. Yeah, I'll ask outside. I don't want to
Yeah.
put it on public. Oops. All right, let's see. Good morning. Before we get started, I'd like to ask our interpreter to walk us through how to access our interpretation services for today's meeting. Please proceed.
Announcement from interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon, world, and select English as your preferred language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish low in the back. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out a headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer uso del servicio de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación globo terráqueo y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares disponibles para el servicio de interpretación. Si se encuentra en la sala de reunión, favor de pedir auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, I would also like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region has historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systematic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States, from our cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, the Guieno, the Lucieno, Cupeño, and the Kauai. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of SANDAG community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. And now please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I'll now ask our clerk to confirm that we have a quorum with a roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair. For Biology Environmental, Maureen Alquist.
Present.
For CEO Private Sector, Sunny House.
Here.
For Contractor Construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Present.
For Finance and Budgeting, Mariam Babaki.
Here.
For Licensed Civil Traffic Engineer, Frank Rivera.
Present.
for licensed engineer Les Hopper,
Present.
and real estate right-of-way acquisition is vacant currently.
Okay. Thank you, Clerk. All right, so welcome to the March 12th Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee meeting. I really would like to thank the staff for their efforts to put this meeting together. You know, we all often forget that everything works like clockwork, and the reason for that is all the effort that is behind the scenes. And we are witness to it, me and Vice Chair, so we would really want to thank everybody for their efforts and the great work that they're doing. Thank you. And thank you to everyone on the phone and the web for taking the time to join us today. Let's quickly talk about how this meeting will work. We'll take in-person public comments followed by virtual comments. If you're a member of the public here in the room, please submit a speaker slip to the clerk. For those virtual, please continue to raise your virtual hands at the right time. I want to make sure everyone knows that public participation is possible in person and via Zoom as well. And I'll now ask SANDAG's financial analyst, Vanessa Leon, to provide a quick reminder of how the public and member comments will work, please. Vanessa?
Thank you, Chair Papaki. We will take both in-person and virtual public comments. As noted on the cover page of today's meeting agenda, in addition to emailing comments, the public may also provide live comments during today's meeting. In order to provide live comments, you can join today's Zoom meeting through the link or by dialing one of the numbers from your phone that are provided on the cover page of today's meeting agenda. Join the meeting by clicking on the Join Webinar link provided in the confirmation email you'll receive upon registering. When public comments are called for on an item, on the Zoom platform, click on the raise hand icon in the Zoom toolbar. The clerk will call on you by the name you provide. If you're participating by phone, press *9. The clerk will call on you by the last 2 digits of your phone number. Instructions for providing live comments are also on the bottom of the cover page of today's meeting agenda, which can be accessed from the homepage of SANDAG's website at www.sandag.org. All comments, whether emailed or live, will be made a part of today's meeting record. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Vanessa. All right, let's get it started. Right now, at this time, are there any public comments? Please raise your hand at this time. No one present. Any,
We do not have any public
We don't have
comments on this item.
okay, thank you. Member comments? No member comments. Okay, so we will then can move on to SANDAG's CEO, Mr. Mario Orso, if there are any news.
Thank you a lot. So, good morning. I have quite a bit to update you on. We have been traveling and we were in Sacramento in Mexico City. The board chair and I met with the governor's office to attend and also attended the CalCog board meeting. We focus on RENA and GHG reduction targets, as well as SB 375 reform. So those were the discussions with CalCog, and then we also brought up to the governor's office. CalCog, for those who don't know, is the California Council of Governments, an association of other transportation and planning agencies along the state. We discussed Otay Mesa East with the government of Mexico in our trip to Mexico City that we took last Friday. The meetings went well. Mexico's looking at who would be the operator and concessionaire of the facility on their side. There are multiple agencies who have expressed interest, and we also express an interest of working together on what we're developing here is the border master plan and eventually figuring out solutions of how sustainable funding ideas could come about that. In a very positive way, the California Air Resources Board accepted our 2021 regional plan amendment. For those who did not know, it was approved, and then SANDAG provided an amendment to it, and it has been reviewed. Now, today you're actually seeing and getting briefed on the 2025 plan. But you know that sometimes things take a while to get approved. Some audit updates. The staff has been doing a tremendous job going over the different OIPA and different other audits. that have been brought up, as well as action items that this group has brought up. The team submitted 25 completion updates for OIPA review and certification. There's a new procurement manual that came out that we are submitted so they could see where we are meeting some requirements there or some of those recommendations. And all this is reflecting the implementation recommendations related to, like I said, contracts and procurements. We also met with Caltrans auditors from Sacramento and discussed an upcoming audit to SANDAG. And I had it here on my phone, actually, what was the scope that they're proposing, and I lost it. But they're proposing to review several projects. I probably going to miss one of them or two, but they're going to be reviewing our overall working plan, our rideshare program, Otay Mesa East, the San Dieguito River, and I'm pretty sure I'm missing one more, but they're doing several jobs and that they'll be doing a very comprehensive audit. Regarding toll operations, we uncovered some compatibility issues with Orange County Transportation Authority on the I-15. These issues have been resolved. OCTA did not accept some transponder trips from our specific lanes on the I-15 due to incorrect documentation from between June 2024 and January 2025. The impact was substantially minimal. I would say nominal, but we did alert the California Toll Operations Committee, who oversees the statewide partnership of transferring information so they could that could be corrected. Portions of the I-15 weren't being identified to be within the tolling network, the state tolling network. But again, that was nominal, the impact, and we are very happy that that got resolved. And now this is being implemented also by the California Toll Operations Committee. In another, if you haven't seen in the newspaper, our board took actions for proposed rail alignments for our Lausanne realignment to continue the environmental document process. The refinements and revisions will continue to be made through the process, and updated scoping and public comment periods are anticipated to come later this year, probably this spring. We did have the visit from U.S. Senator Adam Schiff that came to San Diego earlier this month and toured the Lausanne corridor and the Darmar Bluffs. Great conversation about the importance of rail connections between San Diego, the nation, and its future funding opportunities. And look, you know, we can compare numbers from this area, this other area. It is a strategic route that we need to continue rail connections with the rest of the country if we don't want to be isolated. So that's very important. Regarding bikeways, Eastern Hills Crest Bikeway began construction last month. It's a 1.7-mile bikeway. The Bayshore Bikeway Barrio Logan segment has resumed construction. It was paused for several months to support work on adjacent projects. The reality is that we're going to reduce the length of that project because there is a conflict with a sewer project that the city is doing, and we can't sustain our contractor delays financially. So we have resumed our work. We will be doing our mitigation, and we have we're in discussions with the CTC and with the city of San Diego to meet on the long term our commitments for that route. But right now we can't continue with the financial expenditures of delays. So it's just the prudent thing to do. And the city agreed with that. We have some public surveys on Route 483, online learning sessions tonight for the proposed rapid 483 survey will continue. This route will serve Temecula, Escondido, and San Marcos. 483 is the third of 6 routes either starting or continuing planning on this year. Southeastern San Diego Microtransit Pilot Survey, also planning. As you can see, our planning department is very busy, not just with the regional plan, but also with the routes and with our microtransit pilot in Southeastern San Diego in partnership with the Urban Collaborative Project. This would serve Mount Hope, Choice View, and Emerald Hills neighborhoods, seeking community feedback to inform service and the survey to inform service planning, and the survey will close on May 5th. Community climate priority surveys, preparing a climate action roadmap to inform planning, seeking community input about climate priorities. I know we're doing a lot of surveys and we're probably, people could say it's survey overload, but this is our way to communicate with the public and understanding their needs. So then we can proceed with the adequate planning and not just being mentioned that SANDAG is just coming up with ideas. These are ideas that are actually coming from the public through our surveys. And in this one, the Community Climate Priority Survey will end on March 26th. Now, our office move, as you could see, boxes, rooms are empty and all this. We're moving office soon. We're targeting early April. Actually, my team, my specific in the exec team, we're probably gonna start working part-time at the new building starting next week, but we're moving our staff in tranches. So the goal is targeting early April. All public meetings will continue to be held here at 401B up to March 28th. And, we'll continue to keep you updated on this. Our SANDAG main office and customer service will be closed on Monday, March 31st for Cesar Chavez Day. And that concludes my update.
Thank you, Mario. Any questions from Mario? Sunny?
I just have a comment, Mario. I just want to let you know, I personally really appreciate, first of all, you being here every meeting as much as you can. I know you're a very busy man. Also, I really appreciate the detailed report that you provide us. It's comprehensive and very transparent. And I always felt like we were kind of in the dark before. This is all important, for us to be we are your partner and staff's partner in making sure TransNet is, implemented properly. So this is very helpful. So thank you so much.
Thank you. You don't need to thank me. We need to thank the PIO staff, the
Absolutely.
PR staff.
Of course, we're
everybody.
always grateful.
They're the ones who are writing all this for me. But definitely, the spirit, I think always, but I can only attest through my tenure, is that we're an open book, and we'll mention things good or bad. They're going to be brought here, and then let's just discuss how we can move forward.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
I have a question. With all this federal funding cuts, where's SANDAG? Do we know? Are we still waiting to see?
That's an excellent question. And we actually sent a note to our board members. We have about $250 million of grants that were awarded that require full fund agreements or grant agreements to be executed to be able to obligate the funds that are on standby. And this is not just SANDAG, this is not just San Diego. Briefly, some of the team, we traveled to DC where we met with the MPO Association or something like that in DC, where we had Houston, we had other major metros there, and they were all on standby. Now, the good thing is we started receiving questions about one of them. As of yesterday, even this morning, we were frantically writing descriptions for the Regional Federal Highways Office. But there are projects, including Otay Mesa East, $150 million infra grant. We have about $53 million infra grant from FRA for the San Diego Trestle Bridge and platform in front of the Del Mar Fairgrounds. We have Palomar, about $11 million for right-of-way. We have Reconnecting Communities, the Besta Street project. I think Palomar wasn't 11, it was a little bit more. 11 is Besta, but it's also on hold. So you could see there are several. Jacqueline, you probably can relate to this because Jackie had to, during the Trump 1 administration, the Obama administration had provided a fast lane grant, 50 million for SR 11. And the new administration came in and Jackie spent, I don't know if it was 6 months or a year, negotiating the full front agreement. But the PM team for SRE 11, bringing the new administration on board, the values of the project, all that. So it's a conversation to be had. Do I know where we're going to land? Well, I have to be the full optimist that we're going to be granted all the awards that were announced. But it is a period there we're in an unknown area, and day to day we're figuring it out. We did get word that most probably within the next 90 days, all these items will be resolved. But again, we're working through it. We're asking questions, and as you could see, some days some things go this way, other days they go another way.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that report. All right. Moving on to consent agenda. We have items number 2, 3, and 4 requiring an action. Are there any public comments on the consent agenda?
We have no public comments on the consent agenda.
Okay. Sunny?
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like to pull item number 4, which is the ITALK goal update for approval, because I have a suggested change that I would hope ITALK will approve. So, but the rest is fine.
Okay. Did you want to say anything about that or just?
Well, do we want to approve the rest of it, or what would you like to do?
Well, if okay with everybody, we approve the rest and then we come back to this item.
Okay.
Okay, so with that item pulled, are there any other member comments? If not, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items except for item 4, which has been pulled.
Okay, can I have a second?
Second that.
Okay, with Frank motioning and Jackie second. Can I do a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair. For Biology Environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Approve.
For CEO Private Sector, Sunny House.
Approved.
For Contractor Construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Approved.
For Finance and Budgeting, Chair Babaki.
Yes.
For Licensed Civil Traffic Engineer, Vice Chair Rivera.
Yes.
For Licensed Engineer Les Hopper.
Approved.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Let me go back to the item.
So item number 4, there are ITALK goals that are listed. It's on attachment 1. There's a row called SANDAG goals for ITALK. And number 1 says, consider how the TransNet program is supporting the 2021 regional plan priorities and policies. And under that, we had listed advancing the TransNet ordinance amendment for ITALK and a board consideration. Now, considering that we have changed dramatically the changes to the ITALK statement, the amendment to the statement, and now we are only focusing on the selection committee process and not adding board members or ITALK members, which was more in concert with regional plan. I would like to change the number 1 to say something a little bit different, which is our way, which is what we will plan to take to the board as well. So I'm going to read it. It'll be on record, and then you can put it in your minutes if it's okay. It's okay. I would like for it to say, first of all, this item for amendment was also related to the 2021 triennial audit. What was one of the recommendations to improve and enhance ITALK function. But what I would like it to say is, for the goal is enhance the iTalk selection process by streamlining vacancy appointments and ensuring iTalk remains a transparent, independent, and effective oversight partner to SANDAG in managing TransNet funds. That's my recommendation.
Any discussion from members? Staff comments?
I do have a question. So you want to change the goals for 25. Do you want to leave that for 25 and make that a goal for 26? Or because that is a change from what you're going to be taking to the board this year, you want to make that for the 25 goals?
I would like it to stay for 25 because even, I mean, we're doing all of this still in FY 25. And because 21 regional plan is really changed and our purpose has changed. So yeah, for this particular, statement, I just would like it to be changed
Okay, just
as
wanna
I
clarify.
recommended. Thank
Great,
you.
Thanks.
I agree that we should keep it for 2025.
Okay.
Thank you, Sunny.
Any other comments? I agree I think that's very
Okay.
astute observation and correction.
I had a comment, not
Yeah.
on I agree with your statement. It was on something totally different, so thank you for pulling the item.
Okay.
It was on a different item, so do you want to hear my comments? It
On
was on
this
the
item-
project tracker, or do we want to?
This is item 4 or
Is-
something else?
It's item 4.
Item 4, okay, sure.
So let's see if I can get to. So I guess it was called Project Progress Tracker,
Mhm.
actually. So that's attachment 2.
Mhm.
As you read through here, you see a lot of progress on the goals, except for on the last goal, which is let's see, iTalk goals for FY 25, number 2.
Mhm.
And the progress just says the streamlining efforts will continuously be maintained. And I thought potentially that just looks like we haven't done anything on that,
Mhm.
which might be true, but it seems like this is something that's probably worked on continuously, as it says. So potentially we could summarize, put, some detailed information in there, because I think the last entry is 6/30/2023.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, we've definitely made substantial changes to the iTalk
Right.
agenda, and we're constantly coming to iTalk asking, what can we do to make changes? And we make little changes along the way. We just don't document those little changes. That's why we have that one sentence, but we
Right.
can summarize the changes that we've made just to show that we've made progress.
Right, especially when we wrap it up at the end of the year.
Mhm.
It would be nice just to have a summary of the year potentially.
Okay.
I realize that sometimes those things seem minuscule, but I think just what
Mhm.
Sunny was saying to Mario is possibly a change that's happened.
Yeah.
Maybe let's document that.
Okay.
In that arena, I think, and totally agree with you. I think that change, takes, we're working from, even in some cases, creating the foundations, right? So right now, we are developing the kind of data requirements and systems requirements to eventually move forward to a resource planning project tracking system, kind of like Primavera or something like that, that would allow further transparency on the milestones met, as well as the funding that it's being utilized on a life perspective. And I think that by creating the program project management department within the delivery groups, it's not an immediate solution that's gonna appear overnight, but it would eventually, its main focus is to track the scope, schedule, and cost of projects, but also to enhance the transparency and communication with everybody on not just TransNet projects, but every single project that this agency is working on.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out there, that there are some things that are, let's say, being cooked on the boiler, but it's gonna take them a while to get there. But that is the goal. Yeah.
Just to add on to what Jacqueline said, one of the really nice changes that you've made is how you communicate the completion of the triennial performance audit. I think that should be listed in there. You know, you now have a very formal process, and the forms, and you report. So those are all great things that, you know, goes towards that transparency and communication. So thank you. So with that, I would like to make a motion to amend that language of the goal for audit, for ITALK goals for the amendment as stated earlier. And approve the plan. That change.
Approve the agenda. Can we get a second?
I've got a comment.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but we still have some
Do
comments.
we have to make the motion also for attachment 2? The explanation on
Well,
page
that's,
4 of
yeah,
attachment?
that's not necessarily a
Just a
change.
comment.
That's just something,
Comment.
yeah, I would,
Okay.
I considered that a comment.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, I'll second your motion, Sunny.
Thank you.
Okay. Sunny making the motion, Frank second. May I have a vote, please?
For, excuse me, for biology environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Approve.
For CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Approved.
For contractor construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Approve.
For finance and budgeting, Chair Babaki.
Yes.
For licensed civil traffic engineer, Vice Chair Rivera.
Yes.
And for licensed engineer, Les Hopper.
Yes.
That motion passes unanimously.
Great. Okay. All right, moving on to the report items. Item number 6, local city presentation from City of Escondido by Jonathan Schobel, right?
Yeah, correct. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Jonathan Schabel, City Engineer at the City of Escondido. And I'm here to present for you the Escondido Grand Avenue Vision Plan. So this project started way back in 2015, and it was actually initiated by the community in that a bunch of downtown merchants and stakeholders actually came to the city and asked to do something with our Grand Avenue, and that's kind of our downtown area. So there's a lot of retail shops, some restaurants, and they wanted to revitalize it. And so by 2017, concept plans were developed, and there were public meetings to receive public input on this project. In 2018, the City Council approved the Grand Vision Plan. In 2019, we received a Smart Growth Incentive Program grant from SANDAG. And you'll see some of the other funding sources in a future slide. That was approved by Council. And then in 2021, the City Council adopted the environmental document for the project, which was a CEQA mitigated negative declaration. So when we had these visioning meetings with the community, well, the goals of the project became creating a vibrant pedestrian-friendly downtown area. Like many downtown areas, Escondido's had kind of grown stagnant. We had a lot of vacant storefronts, empty buildings, a lot of retail. People were going down to the big mall at the south end of town, and we really needed to revitalize it. So that was our number one goal, is make it more pedestrian friendly, provide wider sidewalks to do that, and to provide outdoor dining spaces for the restaurants that were still there, and encourage other restaurants to come in to the downtown. Improve parking by adding some diagonal parking where possible, because you can fit in more parking spaces than the traditional parallel parking, and also to calm traffic. As you can see in this picture, this picture is from a couple years ago, and you actually have 2 lanes in each direction of travel with left turn lanes. There's a raised median in the background, so you can see it looks more like an arterial roadway than a pedestrian friendly downtown. So this is what actually got approved by council. The Grand Vision Plan encapsulated the improvements from Escondido Boulevard on the west end all the way to Juniper Street on the east end. So basically 4 blocks of improvements. Probably the biggest thing that jumps out is you've got 3 traffic circles there, which are obviously for traffic calming purposes and also to take out the traffic signals, which are encourage, in some cases, congestion, and you've got the maintenance costs of traffic signals. So we were going to put in these 3 traffic circles and then widen the sidewalks to make it more pedestrian friendly and add seating areas outside for the restaurants to actually serve their customers out on the sidewalk. And you can see here, there's also this kind of a concept plan. There's diagonal parking. You can't fit it in on both sides of the street, but you can on one side. If you go at the other side is parallel. So because the total project was going to cost about $15 million, and those cost estimates were done 5-6 years ago, and Escondido did not have the funds to do the whole project in one shot. So we decided to break it up into a phased approach, and as money became available, as grants were received, we were able to build this project in phases. So the first phase was basically from Maple Street to Kaalmada, and we widened the sidewalk from Broadway to Maple Street on the north side only because we were limited in funds. But we were able to resurface and restripe the whole Grand Avenue corridor from Escondido Boulevard all the way to Juniper. And this was a way that we could get it down to 1 lane in each direction of travel and take out the center medians and add some parking. So that was a lot of bang for our buck because, as you see, we didn't have a lot of money to work with here. The total project budget for phase 1 was $2.5 million. And as I said, we did get that Smart Growth Incentive Program grant, which was about $1.4 million, and the city match with TransNet funds, which is a little over $1 million. So you can see this schematic shows basically the 2 blocks of improvements. However, the light blue with those traffic circles, those are coming in a future phase because we didn't have enough funds to build a traffic circle in phase 1. It would eat up most of that budget and you wouldn't be able to do some of these other things. Like we added 2 whole blocks of those red lines you see crisscrossing the road. Those are actually string lights or festoon lighting. Creates kind of a sense of place. It's kind of a fun atmosphere when you go down there at night and you've got those lights on. We were able to widen the sidewalks from, like I said, that 1 block between Maple and Broadway on the north side. And we did take out the medians. And we added a black railing for that outdoor dining, as I had mentioned earlier. So this is kind of a before and after picture. On the left is the old roadway with the 2 lanes in each direction and the raised median. And you can see the picture on the right. The raised median's gone and we added extra room so we could add diagonal parking on one side of the road. You can see there's kind of a decorative pavers. There's some landscaping there, although when this picture was taken, the landscaping was just getting started, so it looks pretty small in that photo. And you see that green light post in the forefront there on the right-hand picture. We did put in decorative street lights, which enabled us to run those string lights across the roadway. You can't see them very well in this picture. Yeah, they're kind of hidden in the blue sky there, but I have another picture later. You'll be able to see that better. And so this shows the resurfacing and the restriping and how we were able to add some diagonal parking there, remove the median. And again, the decorative street light on the right. And if you look down at the concrete there, you can see there's colored concrete. It's actually 2 different colors. There's standard gray is up against the buildings. And then we've got that kind of a adobe tan color on the left side. There's tree wells. So we planted trees. And as I mentioned, added some landscaping. Those decorative street lights anchor the festoon lighting. And also you can see there's a brackets where you can hang banners. And so if you went to Escondido right now, you'd see that we've got banners that are hanging on those streetlights. And during part of the year, we acknowledge our veteran heroes by, having a banner up there with their picture and some information. So we did find some challenges with the phase 1 project, which was completed in 2022. We tried to get ahead of the light procurement because those large diameter light poles that are decorative have a long lead time. So we actually ordered those ahead of time and provided those to the contractor to install. However, we ran into delays with the tree grates and the meter pedestal, which were far exceeded what anybody was expecting. I think we were coming out of COVID at that time, and construction really started to pick up and everybody was busy. And so a lot of our materials had lengthy lead times. So moving ahead for phase 2, this is the project that's currently under construction. And there was an article about it recently in the San Diego Union Tribune. I don't know if you saw that. The total project cost, this is a much bigger project. It's over $13 million. And the bulk of it, you can see, is American Rescue Plan Act, which are federal stimulus dollars that were provided to Escondido. TransNet, again, played a large role in this project. And the city also has some general funds that are contributed with the amount of approximately 1.2 million. So for phase 2, we are actually installing 2 of the 3 traffic circles, which were part of the whole Grand Vision plan. So we're not finishing the whole plan. We're doing the bulk of it as phase 2, and there still will be a piece remaining for a phase 3. So for phase 2, we already constructed, as I said, it's in construction, a traffic circle at Kaalmada and Grand intersection. And we're in construction on the Broadway Grand Avenue intersection right now. And for that project, we're widening the sidewalks on both sides from Maple all the way to Juniper, adding more string lighting, and adding more diagonal parking, more landscaping, trees. And so you can see here's kind of a bullet list of what phase 2 includes, and also the decorative railing for the restaurants, as I mentioned earlier. So basically continuing the same design pattern and design theme of phase 1. It's just encompassing a much larger area. And as I said, construction began last September, and we're on schedule to be finished. Hopefully this rain kind of holds off, but we're getting some rain days here lately, but we're on schedule to finish at the end of April. So here's just a couple pictures under construction. The one on the right shows a fairly large intersection, which is Broadway and Grand Avenue. You can see it's tore up there. They're currently installing a traffic circle there. So this is pictures from sort of partially completed phase 2 project. And the traffic circle on the right is actually the Kaalmada intersection, which is smaller. And so I know it looks kind of plain. It's just kind of gray concrete. But because it's such a smaller diameter, in order to accommodate large trucks turning left, especially emergency vehicles, fire engines, we couldn't put anything in the middle of the roundabout without it getting tore up and run over. However, the Broadway intersection, when it's completed, it will have some nice landscaping, and there's a project underway for public art installation at the center of the Broadway roundabout. And then on the left, you can see how nice it is to have the outdoor dining. It's a nice wide space. The railing was provided as part of the project by the city. However, the business owner provided the tables, chairs, and the planter box there. And you can see that accommodates their outdoor dining, which will help their business tremendously. So looking forward into the future, as I said, we still need to do a phase 3 to sort of complete the entire Grand Vision plan from Escondido Boulevard to Juniper. And that would be widening both sides of Grand from Maple to Escondido Boulevard and adding that last traffic circle at the Maple intersection. And again, continuing the same theme with the festoon or the string lighting and landscaping, trees, tree wells. At this point, we don't have all the funds to move forward with that project. The estimated cost is about $4 million. We do have a $1 million earmark from Representative Peters from Community Project Funding Grant. That's federal dollars. And also, we plan on applying for another Smart Growth Incentive Program grant for Cycle 6, which is coming up, and those are due in a few weeks. And also, because Phase 1 was very successful and well-received, and the portions of Phase 2 that are already open are looking great and getting a lot of positive energy, we're thinking about moving forward even after Phase 3 is done and that original Grand Vision Plan is complete, but continuing this further to the east because there's more retail and there's more restaurants east of Juniper. And there's a new development underway right now, just a couple blocks to the east called Palomar Heights, which is putting in some 300 plus units of high density. And so that will bring those customers down to our downtown area. And we'd like to have that connectivity. So that concludes my slides, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Any questions, Frank? Yeah.
I've got two questions. Seeing how the city council approved the 3 phases of work, is this leading to an update of the circulation element of the general plan? As you mentioned, Phase 4 would extend further to the east. So is the city of Escondido looking at now the revisions that are needed in that downtown area and elsewhere?
Yeah, actually, right now, the city has underway a project for their active transportation strategy, or CATS, Comprehensive Active Transportation Strategy, is underway, and that includes an update to the mobility element, which is part of the general plan.
Okay, and my other question then is, for the benefit of the other local agencies in the region, lessons learned, like what's the biggest lesson that you've learned so far with the 3 phases?
Well, as I said before, the biggest challenge when we got to construction was the delays in procuring some of the materials. So it was those items, smaller items that don't seem like a lot, like a meter cabinet is basically just a metal box that the electric meter goes in to power those lights that you see on the screen. And we waited over 6 months for that cabinet, which the normal lead time is we're told, 1 or 2 months. So in order to get around that, you can, as a city, try to procure some of these things in advance. Like say you're in design and you're not going to be done with your design for months, but you can go ahead and order some of the long lead items now. It makes things a little more complicated. But at the end of the day, if schedule is that critical, you can go ahead and do that. And we did that actually for the light posts, those decorative, taller light posts that you see in this picture. We ordered those in advance with some of our project funds, and then we provided those to the contractor to install.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
I have a, oh. Go ahead. Are you sure? Go ahead. Okay. So these were 3 separate contracts, correct? Do I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, we're in construction on Phase 2.
Oh, okay.
So
So they will be 3.
we've had 2 contractors, different
Okay, that was
contractors.
my question. So different contractors.
Yeah.
So can you let us know, has that been a problem? Has it, oh, okay. And then
Yeah.
the third one will be a third contractor.
Because the projects
potentially.
were, even though they're phases of one large project, they're almost like separate projects because we had to wait to get the funding for the Phase 2. So there was literally like a 2-year gap between projects. And to be honest, the project is not hyper complex. It's mostly asphalt, concrete, some lighting. So we had no problem finding qualified contractors that were happy to bid the projects.
And how are, thank you for that answer. And how are the roundabouts being received by both the folks driving in their cars and the bikes? How's that going out there?
You know, roundabouts are a mixed bag, as I'm sure many of you know in the transportation industry. I say mixed bag in that a lot of the community has pushback. They don't like them, they're not used to them, but they have obvious benefits, environmental benefits, safety benefits. And as you see, there's more and more roundabouts and traffic circles being built every year in San Diego County. So there are people that recognize that and really appreciate that, but there are always those in the community that are going to push back and take to social media and tell you how it was the wrong thing to do.
Right. I was just wondering statistically, safety wise, are they
How it's
seem to be
operating?
working well with, because it's new to us or
Yeah.
newer, but you do see them all over the county now.
Yeah, it's too early for us to have any meaningful data on accidents, but traditionally roundabouts are known for having fewer accidents than a traditional traffic signal and lower severity accidents because you don't have that T-bone. What you get is, a minor fender bender because you have to go fairly slow to navigate through the traffic circle.
Les?
I'm just curious, given the length of overall time for the project and the phasing that you mentioned, how are your actual construction costs coming in compared to the original estimates?
Yeah, actually, that's a good point in that the original cost estimate, like I said, around 5 years ago, was 15 million for the whole three-phase project. And we've already spent more than that just on phase 1 and 2. So you can see we've got another 4 million roughly to spend for phase 3. So yeah, the cost estimates are lower than what the actual cost is going to be. But I think that we've seen that across the board once, COVID kind of wound down and there was just so much stimulus money and people doing construction projects, we weren't getting very competitive bids for a while. And now we're starting to see those bid prices are coming back down.
Sunny?
So first of all, Jonathan, thank you so much for being here. I always like to see cities come in with their beautiful, wonderful projects and present, so appreciate it. This is really what transit is all about, to help all of our municipalities to do things like this to improve the quality of life. And I'm particularly interested in this because I live in Escondido, so
Oh.
it's wonderful to be able to enjoy and see all those wonderful restaurants to come in, so thank you. I do have a question, kind of piggybacking on what Les said about the construction. What about current conditions, threat of tariff and all those things? Are you considering, some adjustments to your cost estimates, or how will you navigate these times to make sure you're asking for the right amount of money?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we rely on our engineering consultants because they're the ones that are actually doing the engineering drawings and they're coming up with those detailed cost estimates. And as I said earlier, we're seeing that those numbers, the bid numbers are coming in now more consistent with our estimates. And we did have a period where that wasn't the case, and we were always getting surprised when we opened bids, how high everything was. But we are seeing that come back down. And I think moving forward with phase 3, we've seen that our most recent engineering consultants, they're kind of adding in that extra factor of safety when they do their cost estimates so that agencies like us have enough money to complete the project and we don't have to look at cutting some scope of work just to get the project done.
Good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Any more questions? I have a question, Jonathan.
Okay.
I'm looking at that picture where Felipe's Pizza is there,
Mm.
and I was there 3 weeks ago. A friend of mine came from, was visiting me from the Bay Area. We went to Waldorf Animal Park, and she really wanted to go to Felipe's. And when we went there, it was not a place we wanted to be. It was, so I'm
Yeah.
wondering, within the last 3 weeks,
Like
this is what
this.
it looked like
Yeah,
3 weeks
yeah.
ago. Yes. And I don't know if it's when was this one taken? It was
This is a few weeks ago. Yeah, it was a few weeks ago.
like, so I'm really like, I'm wondering what, because we could hardly find, we had to go like 2 blocks around and 2 blocks over because we were not supposed to go through the construction zone, but.
Right.
No,
right.
but no, I'm just wondering, I'm really like shocked and like, wow, you did all this in 3 weeks? When
Oh,
was-
it's not done, no. So this is the Broadway intersection. And so that's still under construction, although they have paved, it does look a lot different from this. So they've done the base paving and the actual traffic circle, you can see that it's starting to take shape.
No, but I think another previous slide that shows the Philippi's.
Oh yeah, that's actually the same one. When you look back, you see the Philippines in the construction. And when
Yeah,
you-
this is after phase 1 was done, but phase 2 hadn't started yet.
So Philippines does look like the construction zone still. That they have-
Yes, but they have made progress since that picture's
So,
taken.
okay, so I'm not like, oh my God, this is a miracle. You did all of this.
Yeah. No, it's 2 different time periods.
Okay, so here's what I need to share with you because I was like there. And like I said, it took us, we parked, we were kind of, and from a business standpoint and from somebody who wants to use this area, we really were hungry and we wanted to get there. Otherwise, we would have just left because it was a little bit of from a user standpoint, some signs probably are helpful. A lot of it was about 1 o'clock. A lot of the businesses were closed. I can feel their pain as this is happening. So maybe some way of assisting them while this is ongoing. That, I don't know, you really were going to be able to do this by April. I hope so. But I have another little tidbit to tell you as a city engineer, and you probably need to know that again. We ate at 1 o'clock. We were done about 2 o'clock, and so I needed to take my friend to the airport. Everything was knocked off by 2 o'clock. There were no workers there. So we were like, wow, how are they going to finish this if the work day ends so early? So just a few pointers, if for the good of the best use of the funds and ease of the public, etc. Making sure that the work goes on. And I was going to ask you how is the city helping the businesses really stay and sustain themselves while this is going on?
Mhm. Yeah, those are good points. So I wish I would have been there with you. I would have told you Philippi's has a back entrance. You could get there from the north side. There's alleys.
The restaurant, but before that we didn't know.
Okay, now you know there is a back. But no, you have some good points there, and I do have a few slides. So this is showing, I know it's probably hard to see, but it's basically showing the phase 2 project, but it's split into like sub-phases, let's call it. So what they're showing here is phase 1, 2, 3 are actually sub-phases of the current project. And so they didn't tear up the whole 3 blocks in one shot. They actually started on the east end, on the Juniper side, and they worked their way west. So the pictures I showed of the nice dining that was completed with the railing, that's already done and they're in full use. At the same time, you go down to Philippi's area and it's all tore up. So that was one way that we could try to impact the businesses less or minimize the impacts, is by doing this sort of in phases. So we didn't just tear up the entire downtown all in one go.
Still 2 blocks and quite a bit.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
quite a bit. So,
And we tried to provide for pedestrian walking even during construction. So you can see the small picture in the upper right corner there's actually the orange fencing up close to the business frontage there, and there's about a 4 to 5 foot walkway, which meets ADA standards. So you can still get in and out of the business while they're doing work on the other side of the fence on the street side. And in the figure, you're seeing called Subphase 1 on the slide. The green dashed line is showing sort of the pedestrian path around the work zone.
Right, right. It's long. And
Yeah.
if you want to go from one place to another, it really takes a lot. It's just that there are impacts to businesses. We could see it.
Definitely, definitely. And we couldn't get around that. You can see, this is kind of what you're getting at with Broadway is a major intersection. And you've got Philippi's on the corner there, the northwest corner. And you could see the green dotted line for pedestrians. It's there, but you have to go out of your way, you know, way north or way south to get around that intersection.
Yes.
So there's definitely inconvenience no matter what. We did try to do our best to sort of minimize the impacts to the businesses. And these are some of the things that we did. You mentioned the working hours. So in this case, the contractor started early. They started at 6 a.m. And yeah, they were done earlier in the afternoon, like 2:30. But a lot of the businesses on Grand aren't open at 6, 7 a.m. And so this was one way to sort of try to minimize the impacts. A lot of the places open later. Not everyone, of course. There's a coffee shop down there. So we did promise to maintain, and we continue to maintain pedestrian access to the front of each business, all during construction. We did some night work to minimize impacts. So those new light posts that we've been talking about, the foundations are actually quite deep. They're 12 feet deep. And so they had to bring out a drill rig to drill those holes for the foundations. And we made sure they did that at night to minimize the impacts,
Right.
as I said. There is informational signage around the construction zone. To be honest, it is kind of a constant battle because the wind will knock something over or someone will, you know, intentionally kick something over. And so it's kind of constantly staying on the contractor to make sure the signs are maintained and working with them. We do have a dedicated project web page through the city's website that gives updates, and it has a map. It gives construction updates, also has a map showing parking around the work zone. A lot of the parking, even before the project, is not actually on Grand. It's usually on the side streets. There's some public parking areas. And so here, you probably can't see the detail, but basically those gray boxes with the blue P are public parking lots that are not on Grand. So the Grand is actually in between there, running east and west. And so you can see those lots are all available. Yes, you have to walk a block to get to Grand, but when we had Grand under construction, that meant there was still parking available nearby. We did some wayfinding, directional signage. Obviously, there's a detour kind of around the construction zone. There's a QR code that was on some flyers and social media, which directs people to the project's webpage. We have been doing email blasts, updates weekly, showing exactly what we're going to work on this week and, you know, progress being made and some pictures. So those, you can sign up for those weekly newsletters through the webpage. As I mentioned, there is public art being installed that not necessarily helps the business community, but it's going to add another feature that will beautify the downtown, maybe attract some people. And there was our economic development director put together some social media posts, and as you can see here, some signage and banners and things to tell people, hey, downtown is still open. You know, yeah, it's a construction zone, but we're still open. Please come down, continue to shop, continue to eat at the restaurants. So we did try to do as much as we could, but you're right. I mean, it's a huge impact, and we acknowledge that. But we tried to keep the time of work minimized and just try to get the project done on schedule by the end of next month.
It seems to me that now that you have all these area enclosed for construction already, you know, you benefit from expediting and intensifying the level of work so that it doesn't get prolonged in as much as it can get intensified so that shorten the duration usually you kind of stage it in such a way that one area is open and then you go to another one. This one is a nice 2 blocks that's all belongs to the contractor. Knock it out, that's
Right.
usually, the approach, not that you got the space, go knock it out. And it may seem, I've been in your shoes. I know, I've been sitting, I know that it's really difficult position to be in, but it may benefit from like some talking to the contractor to see how this work may be expedited. But now that it's closed, now that let's just shorten the pain and, shorten the duration. One more observation, if I may. I saw that roundabout, the concrete roundabout that you had that was very blank, and you had honestly, seems like such a lost opportunity. These roundabouts are perfect locations to feature some public art, something. It doesn't need to be anything big, but something that, speaks to the identity of the city, its history, whatever. Even if it's a different color, something that's not just a blank concrete circle might benefit the area, just kind of speaks to the whole theme motif that you're trying to create.
Yeah,
an
I
idea.
agree. The Broadway roundabout will have a public art installation in the center, and it will have landscaping and uplighting. The problem with the one I showed at Kaalmada was it's just such a small traffic circle that the turning movement templates showed that, your larger vehicles and emergency vehicles were going to run over the center of the roundabout. And so we couldn't put anything decorative really in the middle without it getting destroyed.
So the arrows that I saw in the middle, are they permanent or are they?
Well, they're breakaway on Telspar posts, they're breakaway signs. And that's just to direct the driver that, hey, if it's dark and they're having trouble seeing, that you can't just go straight over this thing, that you need to follow the path, to the right. So that's more like a regulatory sign. But they are pushed to the middle to avoid getting knocked down, and they are on breakaway Telspar posts, which is standard.
Okay. All right. Well, anyway, that was really interesting that this came forward.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Yes, Doreen.
Just briefly, because I know we've spent quite a bit of time on this. I too live in Escondido, and this area, if this was my first experience, similar to Madam Chair, I probably wouldn't go back. And it's a really missed community for the businesses and for people to come to Escondido, because it has a lot of value and interest just going down there. And I'm excited that there's some public art, and with the art center and all that, there's some great resources. But it's unfortunate that as a member and a community member of the area, that I would learn about getting additional resources here. And so my comment is more pertaining to making sure that that information is available and visually accessible, so that if people want more information, have a better understanding of what the timing of construction. There's a long walk around from a pedestrian standpoint to get to the businesses. And then also from the business perspective, that there's a lot of storefront availability, and you want to try to encourage more people to come in. And so making sure that that information and that access is also available is important. So I just wanted to mention that. But thank you very much for doing the improvements. It's on a long term, it's going to be very nice.
Thank you.
Are looking forward to seeing the results. In April, you said?
End of April. And the caveat being, we don't have too much rain coming up here.
Okay. We'll
Thank
give
you.
you a few days of rain. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate it.
Chair, I'm sorry, we didn't take public comments on this item.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't see any hands up, but I just wanted to
Oh,
know for the
okay.
record that there were none.
Yeah, we jumped right in. Sorry about that. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to item number 7, appointment of one subcommittee member for TransNet Triennial performance audit, and that's presented by Vanessa.
Good morning, ITAC members. Today we need to discuss the appointment of a new member of the subcommittee for TransNet Triennial Performance Audit. This subcommittee has originally had 3 dedicated members, Sunny House, Les Hopper, and a position recently vacated by Jonathan Frankel. Our immediate goal is to find and appoint an ITAC member for this open slot. The subcommittee helps to determine which items the auditor will focus on for the fiscal year 2027 TransNet TPA, as well as review audit recommendations and bring any specific TPA items for the ITAC for discussion. I would like to note that because the next one will be in fiscal 2027, the meetings will most likely start until fiscal 2026. So it'll be until like probably at the end of this year and beginning of next year. These audits review project delivery, cost control, schedule adherence, and related activities. We're seeking a knowledgeable individual familiar with TransNet ordinance amendments and with a TPA who can provide valuable insights and contribute to these important efforts. Would any ITAC member like to volunteer to support this moving forward?
Yeah, this is a tradition that the newest ITAC member is on, right?
So Jacqueline would like to volunteer.
Perfect. Yay.
I move to nominate Jacqueline for the triennial subcommittee, audit subcommittee.
I'll second that motion.
Sunny and Frank, yes. Do we have a vote on that?
Yeah.
Do we need to, okay, can we call vote, please?
I think we need to take public comment.
Oh, I'm sorry, public comment. please.
We have no
So
public
excited.
comment on the item.
After
Any,
construction, you're just.
any public comments on this?
No, Chair, we do not have any.
Any member comments? Let's move on to vote then.
For biology environmental, Maureen Alquist.
Approve.
For CEO private sector, Sunny House.
Approved.
For contractor construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Yes.
For finance and budgeting, Chair Babaki.
Yes.
For licensed civil traffic engineer, Vice Chair Rivera.
Yes.
And for licensed engineer, Les Hopper.
Approve and thank you.
Okay, yes.
And that motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jackie. Okay, moving on to item number 8, fiscal year 2024 TransNet fiscal and compliance audits, initial findings and recommendations by Kimberly Trammell and Marcus Pasquale.
Hello, good morning, members of iTalk. I am Marcus Pasquale with the Finance Department and will be introducing this item before handing it to Shannon, our auditor. In accordance with the TransNet ordinance, the iTalk has the responsibility to conduct the annual fiscal and compliance audits of agencies that receive TransNet funds. iTalk is required to share the initial audit results and its recommendation to the Transportation Committee 60 days prior to its release to resolve any inconsistencies and technical issues. In this item, Shannon will be presenting the results of the audit, and in the next item 9 are the eligibility requests, which I will be presenting. So I will now turn it over to Shannon, who will present the initial results of the FY24 TransNet audits.
Good morning. Just to verify. Big green button. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you all for having me this morning. As Marcus mentioned, I'm here to report the preliminary results of the TransNet and TransNet extension activities agreed upon procedures. The scope of our engagement includes performing agreed upon procedures to determine if the recipients of TransNet funds were in compliance with the ordinance for the year ended June 30, 2024. The procedures were approved by the iTalk committee in July of 2024. Our procedures involve reviewing all 24 recipient agencies. They were performed from September 2024 through January 2025 and include 8 major compliance components. The first area compliance components is the TransNet expenditures. And we select at least 25% of total expenditures incurred for each agency. We test 20% of we test payroll charges if they exceed 20% of TransNet expenditures. And I'm happy to report that all recipient agencies were in compliance with this expenditure requirement as well as a revenue requirement. Second compliance area is the maintenance of effort. Each agency shall maintain the same level of local discretionary funds expended for street and road purposes on average over the last 3 fiscal years. All recipients were in compliance with the MOE requirement except for the city of Poway. They did have a $92,000 deficit for this compliance area. An additional procedure that we performed this fiscal year was the re-indexing of the maintenance of effort. This procedure is performed every 3 years, in which we calculate the new maintenance of effort requirement. We apply the lowest growth rate to the previously calculated MOE base year for the new base rate to be used for our procedures for fiscal years 27 to 29. All of the procedures have been completed for the applicable member agencies, except for the cities of Del Mar, La Mesa, Lemon Grove, National City, and Santee. We have not yet been able to complete the re-indexing for these agencies because their annual comprehensive financial reports are not yet completed. The third compliance area is the local agency balance limitation, the 30% rule. So this is that each agency must maintain a balance of more than 30% of its annual apportionment and must use the remaining balance to fund projects. If they're not in compliance, then payments will be deferred when the unused balance has fallen below the 30%. And all recipient agencies are in compliance with this 30% rule. Number 4 and 5 are the local street improvements and congestion relief versus maintenance. All recipient agencies are in compliance with the requirement that at least 70% of the revenues were used for congestion relief, and all agencies are in compliance with the requirement to not spend more than 30% of the funds for maintenance. This slide is the indirect costs. Our procedure over indirect costs really is to document the indirect costs in relation to TransNet expenditures and obtain an explanation if the indirect costs exceeds 10% of total TransNet costs. We had 2 agencies this year that the indirect costs exceeded 10% of total TransNet costs. That was the City of San Diego and the County of San Diego. Their explanation for these increase for exceeding 10% is due to the amount of city and county staff that is currently working on the projects in the pipeline. So the more city staff, such as engineers and planners, the more indirect costs they will have. Additionally, we did have one finding related to indirect costs, and that was from Caltrans. They actually allocated $77,000 of indirect costs to TransNet projects that should not have been allocated, and they are working on correcting that in fiscal year 2025. That was due to some changes in the percentages of indirect costs, and that's how that got over allocated. Okay, number 7 is the Regional Transportation Congestion Improvement Program, the RTCIP. This compliance area requires that specific exaction fees are collected by agencies. And this year we had 2 agencies that were not in compliance, the City of Coronado and the County of San Diego. The requirement is that each agency should collect at least $2,749 from each newly constructed residential housing unit, and this is approved by the ITALC and SANDAG at the beginning of each fiscal year. These two agencies had small variances, and it was due to prior year fees being collected instead of current year fees. So the under collection was minimal, but they will be working on curing that deficit. And then the second part of this compliance requirement is that each agency must expend or commit funds within 7 years of receiving those funds. And the city of Coronado had 1 year in which they did not commit all or expend all of the funds within the 7-year period. And then lastly, we have the transit operator eligibility. This is that the increase in operating costs per revenue vehicle hour cannot exceed the increase in CPI. So for the bus services, MTS and NCTD were both in compliance with this requirement. The second part of it is the same thing, but for rail services, and that it can also not exceed the CPI, and MTS and NCTD did not meet this requirement. And I will now turn it back over to Marcus.
Okay.
Thanks, Shannon. I will now go over the next steps. On April 18th, the ITALC is scheduled to present the initial results and findings of the audit and its recommendations to the Transportation Committee. June 17th is the earliest date the ITALC could accept and issue the final compliance audit results, which is 60 days following the report of the initial draft. And July 9th is when we expect the final audit results to be presented to ITALC. And that will conclude my presentation of item 8, and we'll let any questions be asked at this time.
Okay. Are there any member comments? I mean, public comments?
We do not have any public comments.
Member comments? Yes, and
Thank you for the report. Davis Farr has been doing this now for quite a bit of time. In your opinion, how do you see this compliance? You know, what are some observations as far as year to year, how things have either gotten better or worse? And, you know, some of these exceptions that we continue to have to approve. Any opinions?
So this is actually only my second year on the engagement, although Davis Farr has been doing it for several years. And I will note that I do believe that in each year there's usually, you know, a few findings, but overall I wouldn't consider any of the findings egregious or severe. I do find that the RTCIP finding, I think, is usually a communication issue between departments. And I do think that that is the one area that has the most findings each year. And other than telling people to communicate within their agencies, I'm not sure how else to resolve that problem. But overall, I think the procedures go rather smoothly. All of the agencies know what to expect, and they're usually in compliance with each of the areas.
How about you, Marcus? What do you think?
So I've been doing this for about 4 or 5 years, and I think this year is better than most.
Agree.
We have the NCTD and MTS CPI finding that happens quite usually as well. The RTCIP fees that Shannon is referring to are the exaction fees. They don't update that number in their system, and although we've had procedures in place to remind them periodically, it's still not 100% fix rate, but I have noticed that it has decreased. I think
Yes.
last year we had 5 or 6. This year we
Mhm.
only have 2. So
Agree. I do also see the improvement in that area. Is there anything else you could do that maybe next year will be 0? All in compliance.
I mean, My opinion is a lot of these are out of our control. This is really the city's operations and how they choose to manage TransNet. We can help them, as in remind them for the RTCIP, for example, but for MOEs, we could be a little proactive and maybe actually remind them to have more reminders for MOE.
Or at least let them know before the audit starts.
Yeah,
That they check those numbers.
exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be helpful. Which brings me to my last point with this CPI for the MTS and NCTV. It's happening every year, and every year we do this exception. What's the plan? I know at some point we had talked about making changes.
Yes, so we took this to our Mobility Working Group Subcommittee for the TransNet ordinances. They had agreed to propose a change to the ordinance to change it from CPI to how the change in the TDA, the percentage of that, and align with that instead of CPI.
Right.
So basically, the subcommittee voted at about 74% of them said, let's do it. We just now need to bring it to the board and propose that to change the ordinance.
Okay, is there a plan or timeline or anything?
As of
that
right
you
now,
can
we're
share?
working on plans and timelines to bring ordinance amendments to the board. We don't have one set yet. So we do have a brand new board, so we kind of need to bring them on board on
A lot of
what
boards.
TransNet is and how we
Okay.
go about doing that. I know at the board retreat, we're planning kind of a TransNet 101.
Okay,
What is TransNet? How do we do all this stuff? So probably following that, maybe later in the year, we can bring back some ordinance amendments.
okay. That would be great. Is there a way, maybe in a quarter or, a few months, you come back, Michelle, and give us a report, an update on where you are with that and really all the other TransNet amendments that we're looking at? We've been silent on that for a while, and I know it's new board and all that, but it'd be nice to have
Absolutely.
an update. Thank you.
Frank?
Yes, my comments on the maintenance of effort, a lot of the issues with that, and I appreciate that, Sunny, that your comment on that was because when we had to update the MOE when I worked for a local agency, the finance department was the lead. So, and then on engineering, we were over on the TransNet, trying to get the projects out the door and anything with MOE, okay, let's just finance, take it from there. So I think what happens is you have all these other departments and they've got their CAFRs or their other reports that they're working on. And it's every 3 years you've got to update it. So it is one of those things where the departments have to communicate with each other. On the RTCIP issue, it's always been there that there's someone that's not collecting enough. And typically it's the fees change on July 1st, and it's the agencies that adopted the minimum amount based on the SANDAG study that was done decades ago. And so it always catches them. And with staff turnover, that was the other issue that was coming up. But it's those agencies that did their own RTCIP study that realized we can't go with the minimum, it has to be higher. Those are the ones that are never caught, not catching enough on the front counter when the permits are coming in. So I think maybe what needs to happen is those agencies that are still with the minimum, they need to really look in to see, is everything still okay locally for us with our fees? Because I remember going through the master fee schedule for everything, looking to see, is everything current with this local agency, not just impact fees, but everything that the local agency does for service, to make sure that everything is right-sized for what it needs to be or for what the services that the local agency is providing. So I think it is a local agency thing, but this is just one issue where they need to look at everything that they're providing for the community at the fees that they're charging.
That's great input. I don't know if the working group can kind of also weigh in on what can be done to improve these things, or Marcus, I think it's important to have these experiences and learn from that and what we can do and what the agencies can do to improve. It'd be nice to have, everybody in compliance. I know it's not, it's maybe much harder to achieve, but that's what we strive for, is to make sure that we can get all the compliance. So it makes Shannon's job a lot easier. Thank you.
I have a question for Shannon. Is the audit comes with recommendations and best practices?
We don't typically make recommendations in the agreed upon procedures report. The accounting standards actually prohibit us from doing
Got it.
so. But there is a finding and recommendations section in each one, and we do, because these procedures have been ongoing for several years, we do have that separate section that they are in there. So each finding that I mentioned in here will have a recommendation in the report, and then a management's response on how they plan to resolve that recommendation.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? If not, can I have a motion to approve item number 8?
I'll make a motion to, to accept the draft independent auditor's report on results of the agreed upon procedures, including initial findings and recommendations for presentation to the Transportation Committee on April 18th, 2025.
Can I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
Frank and Lorraine, can I have a roll call, please?
Thank you. For Biology Environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Approved.
For CEO Private Sector, Sunny House.
Approved.
For Contractor Construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Approved.
For Finance and Budgeting, Chair Babaki.
Yes.
For Licensed Civil Traffic Engineer, Vice Chair Rivera.
Yes.
And for Licensed Engineer, Les Hopper.
Approved.
That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Moving on, item number 8, TransNet funding eligibility request by, and presented again by Kimberly and Marcus.
Thank you, Chair. This is item 9 for the TransNet eligibility requests. So this item is addressing the findings in item 8, and the ordinance allows certain steps to be done so that we can cure and bring those findings into compliance. So that's what I'll be presenting right now. We have 4 requests from NCTD, MTS, and the cities of Poway and Coronado. Pertaining to NCTD and MTS's requests, Section 4C5 of the ordinance states that to maintain fund eligibility, total operating costs per revenue vehicle mile for bus and rail services may not exceed the consumer price index increase for San Diego County over the same period. If there were unusual circumstances, the ordinance allows the operators to either calculate the requirement as a 3-year average or exclude costs. Both operators are choosing to elect the 3-year average, bringing them into compliance for rail services. Approval of this request by the Board of Directors would enable compliance with Section 4C5 of the ordinance, and NCTD and MTS would be eligible to receive all apportioned FY24 TransNet revenues. Should the board choose not to approve this request, then NCTD and MTS would remain in non-compliance for fiscal year 24 and would be eligible to receive fiscal year 25 TransNet revenues equal only to those received in FY24, adjusted for any increase in the CPI for San Diego County over the same period. We also have 2 eligibility requests from the cities. The city of Coronado, which did not expend or commit about $19,000 within 7 years of receiving the funds. The city has started working with SANDAG staff in fiscal year 25 to program the related funds, thereby committing them. The ordinance allows cities to request until the 10th anniversary date to commit or expend the unexpended or uncommitted funds. We also have another request from the city of Poway, who did not meet their MOE threshold this year. Under the ordinance, MOE is defined as maintaining the same level of local discretionary funds for street and road purposes over the last 3 years. And under special circumstances, an agency may request 3 additional years to make up for the deficit. The eligibility requests are scheduled for consideration at the April 18th Transportation Committee meeting, with action on the request scheduled for consideration at the April 25th board meeting. Any comments received from the ITALK will be conveyed to the Transportation Committee and the board. We also have representatives available for questions from NCTD, MTS, and PAWE and Coronado if the ITALK has any questions for them. Additionally, their requests are on attachments 2 through 5. Thank you.
Are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. There are no public comments.
Member comments? No comment? Why do you like it field? I know why. No? No. Okay, last chance. Okay. Frank, no comments? No comments. Okay. Well, in that case, is there a motion to recommend this item to the Transportation Committee?
I'll make the motion as written on to that the TransNet Independent Taxpayer Oversight Committee, number 1, consider the TransNet funding eligibility requests of the City of Poway, City of Coronado, along with North County Transit District and San Diego Metropolitan Transit System. And number 2, recommend the Board of Directors acting as the San Diego County Regional Transportation Commission approve the request.
Thank you for reading the whole thing. Second?
I second.
Good, Jackie's. With Frank and Jackie, can we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Chair. For Biology Environmental, Lorraine Alquist.
Approve.
For CEO Private Sector, Sunny House.
Approved.
For Contractor Construction, Jacqueline Appleton Dean.
Approve.
For Finance and Budgeting, Chair Babaki.
Yes.
For Licensed Civil Traffic Engineer, Vice Chair Rivera.
Yes.
And for Licensed Engineer, Les Hopper. That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 10, draft fiscal year 2026 TransNet Capital Program Budget Update, and it's presented by Jennifer Cha and Chelsea Gonzalez.
Good morning, members of the ITALK. My name is Chelsea Gonzalez, and I'm the manager of the Capital Project Office here at SANDAG.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to present the draft fiscal year 2026 TransNet capital budget. My name is Jennifer Chai, and I am a senior project control analyst with the Financial Planning, Budgets, and Grants Department. So this budget has been strategically developed to align with state and federal funding guidelines, ensuring compliance with our funding partners while advancing the voter-approved TransNet regional transportation projects and program. The proposed draft fiscal year 26 budget is approximately $8.8 billion and is proposing an overall increase of $245 million. And of that $245 million, 65% are federal funds, 27% are state funds, 5% are local funds, and 3% are TransNet funds. As reflected in attachment 1, the fiscal year 26 budget continues to support the delivery of numerous capital projects outlined in the TransNet expenditure plan, reinforcing our commitment to delivering on ordinance commitments. The draft budget includes 89 active TransNet capital projects at various stages from environmental to construction, covering the TransNet program of projects, goods movements, bikeways, and comprehensive multimodal corridor plans, or CMCPs. This attachment provides the current fiscal year 25 approved budget, the proposed fiscal year 26 budget, and the total increase or decrease to the project budget and the reason for the change. This attachment also includes which phase the project is currently funded through. Today's discussion marks the beginning of a broader, more in-depth conversation. Over the coming months, we look forward to engaging with this committee and our policy advisor committees, the board of directors, and our regional partners to further refine the capital program. These discussions will focus on ensuring our projects not only fulfill regional commitments, but also are backed by sound, sustainable funding strategies. We recognize the evolving financial landscape. In February, this committee received an economic update revising projections for both TransNet and Transportation Development Act revenues, both of which are tied to local sales tax performance. Additionally, we are closely monitoring recent federal executive orders and policy shifts that may impact transportation funding streams. Understanding these changes are critical as certain funding sources now face increased uncertainty.
Thanks, Jennifer. Now I'll briefly go over attachment 2 to the report, which includes our capital milestones planned for fiscal year 26. Overall, we have 30 milestones planned based on the draft budget. On page 1, you will see milestones planned for our TransNet major corridors and goods movement programs. Of those 14 milestones, 3 projects are scheduled to begin construction, with 1 project scheduled to open to the public. On page 2 of this attachment, we have the milestones for the bikeway program, and we have 5 projects that are planned to go into construction, with another 4 projects scheduled to open to the public. Our full draft budget is available on our website now, and this represents, like Jennifer was saying, the best information that we have at this time. So while the draft outlines, excuse me, projects and programs that we plan to move forward with, we recognize the need to remain flexible as new developments arise and as we see the landscape and how things are going with our federal funding partners. Advancing the budget now ensures our compliance with fiscal matters and ensures our ability to secure funding eligibility with the understanding that adjustments may need to be made as conditions change or opportunities arise. Looking ahead, we will be taking this budget to our executive committee this Friday, and then we plan to take it to the board at the end of the month on March 28th. And with the final budget planned for in May at this point. And with that, that's our overview of the draft budget, and we'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Okay, are there any member comments? I mean, public comments?
Thank you, Chair. There's no public comment.
Okay, thank you. Member comments, please. Any member comments, questions? Les, no? I saw you were looking very intensely. Hey,
This is for discussion.
did you have any comments?
No.
No? Jackie? Yes.
Just generally, and I thought I saw it in the pile of paper I was looking at yesterday, but I can't put my hands on it. Generally, how much are the construction costs varying from the engineer's estimate?
So based on, I can tell you data that we have through FY24. In FY24, we were seeing bids for the major quarters, goods movement projects were coming in. It was about 7% higher than our engineer's estimate.
7
the-
or 70?
7.
7.
For the bikeway program, though, it was just over 20% higher. So we are seeing higher trends in the bikeway program. And so we're continuing to monitor that. We have a few projects on the bike program going through bids and advertisement right now. So we'll kind of continue to see how that unfolds.
And thank you for jogging my memory. That's exactly what I was looking at, those charts.
Yep.
And so why do you think that is?
So
why is the bike program
I don't know.
higher?
I can answer that one.
Higher in construction.
Or
I saw that
can,
there was
I
a-
can try to
Yes,
answer that.
thanks.
Working, we just saw the presentation from the local agency and the chair's concerns about impacts and all that on the local streets. So one item is we're working in local streets with a lot of movement of people, vehicles, bikes, everything. So traffic control communications is intense with the businesses, with the residents. That's one item there. Another item that I've seen is the bike program has a lot of specialty items coming in. Special electronics for the crosswalks, the special compliances for each city on their, either they're great for the storm drains or their landscaping. then, so those are a lot of specialty items that we are not buying in bulk. Like in a major infrastructure project, we're buying in bulk a lot of concrete, a lot of rebar. So between the project management and having a lot of moving pieces happening during the construction that also come out with the contractor saying, hey, this is going to be a heavier lift coming up, as well as the support. To add that, one of the things that we have noticed, and we have a lot of traffic calming features on our bike projects. So like our roundabouts, and then you don't like the roundabouts, the people, then we change them, then we do this, that. And like I said, the engagement, but also the local entities have, up to a point, seen our bike program as if it was a developer, that you're coming, you're doing something in this area, therefore you need to fix the entire roadway. And going beyond the scope of what a bike project should be. So compound all those items and those moving elements, and the cost just increases. We should consider, as an agency, to go back and look at the bike program as kind of two-facet. One is SANDAG should consider deliver those bike projects that are traversing several cities. But the ones that are focused in a city, we should consider developing in the future, going back to the original spirit of TransNet, a grant program where each city can develop their own bike project within their jurisdiction. Those are just ideas, but it's something that we should be considering, because we cannot be the full bike authority or constructor of all the bike lanes or multiple bike lanes within a single local entity. But it is a lot of moving pieces that are increasing, and uniquenesses that are increasing the cost of the bike project. I don't know, Dave, if you have additional comments.
Thanks, Mario. Yes, that is exactly right. The scale of also the scale of the big projects as opposed to small bike projects. The cost associated with it is different, right? And so 20% in a bike project is not the same as 20% in a big highway project. But we're refining our estimates as we go, giving the escalation in prices and the uniqueness of our bike projects. So we expect to get better this year.
And look, let's not lose focus of several looming issues we're going to be discussing in the coming years, hopefully here. The LA fires is going to put in a substantial need for materials and labor in Southern California. That's going to be a stress and a pinch point that it's going to hit us, in addition to all the other unknowns that we see that could or could not be happening at the national and international level that could force us to higher prices or shortage of materials. So I think this exercises, these discussions are very valuable for lessons learned, but I think the challenges that we have up front of us in the near future are going to put us to roll our sleeves and figure out more potential solutions, because the challenges seem to be up there in the coming future are going to be steeper.
Just one more comment, just on the bike program itself. You pointed out we're putting in a lot of investment, and all communities are really putting in a lot of investment in bikes and active transportation. I really hope that the educational component, I keep reading about it, but I don't see a lot of it to tell you the truth, as a driver, because I think it is a huge investment, and we have to make sure that everybody understands what all this paint means. And like you said, we'll see a new signal. It's like, what, I've never seen that before, you know? So
Yeah.
things like that. So,
In differentiating, I think one of the challenges we're having is the bicycle users or the active transportation users, like anything else, are not bundled in one bucket. So you have the heavy duty users who like certain features that would allow them to excel. And then you have another portion that maybe I'm in that group, that it's not the heavy users that every once in a while does it, and like some other features that feel that it protects us more. And then we have the upcoming technology where do we fit the e-bike world in all this conversation? So like many other subjects, the incoming century that we're living is bringing us many new challenges and conversations. Yeah.
Mario, I have a question regarding what you said earlier. I've heard you say that earlier too, about the bike program and what SANDAG delivers versus what the locals would deliver. I believe that we have a lot of projects even on the bike program that's not funded yet. So there's a lot, and we've been prioritizing, trying to get the ones that can be done. How would you see that happening? Is in all of these included in TransNet? Would it require an amendment to TransNet, or how would you?
That's an excellent question. So as Michelle mentioned, we will be having an offsite with our board, a retreat. But the retreat is not going to be the solutions and discussions of all. But during the coming future time period, let's call it the coming year or whatever, we need to have a real, and iTalk should be at the forefront of that discussion. We need to have a serious discussion about all what TransNet has in their list, and let it be active transportation, let it be transit, let it be highway, or whatever else. And then we put that on the balance with the reality of the funding capacity.
Right.
And there's going to have to be a conversation of priorities. Let it be in the active transportation world, let it be in the highway world, let it be at other areas, transit. So that the board and all the committees at SANDAG will have to engage in having that reality check.
Right.
And yes, when I was discussing this idea of the bike program with some of the staff, they immediately brought up to me, this is a mandate. You have to pursue it. And I answered back, but we also have on the other buckets mandates.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you balance all the mandates when you have this much to do and you can only afford so much? So it's a reality check conversation. And I think it's not just SANDAG the one who's having it. I think all agencies are having, in one way or another, this conversation.
No, I totally agree. I've been thinking about this for a long time because it's obvious we don't have enough money to deliver everything that's in the TransNet at this point. So looking forward to those conversations. I think iTalk should be part of that as well. But someone needs to take the initiative to start it. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and just so you know, the team is working on developing some sort of overarching goals and priorities, and seeing how this could become systematically. But we're also looking at where the federal administration is going. Secretary Duffy put out a memo where he laid out the priorities or some of the nuggets of what the department would be looking of giving priorities for funding. And we can make that memo available if all of you haven't seen it. It went out nationally. So between some of the things that we're looking into internally and what's in that memo, we are going to be coming with some criterias that we will be proposing to the different committees and to the board to use it as kind of the guideline to be doing some sort of priority. I wouldn't call it ranking, but just listing how we go about delivering and where do we put the TransNet funds to get the biggest bang for our buck, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Great discussion. Any other member comments? Okay, I guess we're moving on to, thank you, Chelsea and Jennifer. There's just information and discussion, yeah.
Discussion.
This was a discussion, yes. And going to our item number 11, regional plan update by Antoinette Mayer.
All right, well, good morning. My name is Antoinette Meyer, and I'm the planning director here at SANDAG, for those of you who don't know me. And one of my primary responsibilities as a planning director is to develop and implement the regional plan. And SANDAG, as the federally designated metropolitan planning organization and state designated RTPA, has the primary responsibility of updating the regional plan every 4 years to ensure that we continue to get federal and state funding in the region. And the regional plan is very complex and complicated. We're constantly working on it. It takes us about 4 years to develop the plan. We get a little bit of a break, maybe a couple of months, and then we move into the next one. But we're right now about to hit a major milestone with the 2025 regional plan. We're hoping to release the draft in May. Before we release the draft, we wanted to get in front of you to give you an update on what's different from the 2021 plan, how we got to this point, all the outreach we've done, what the modeling results are looking like for the regional plan. And I know you probably really want to know is how TransNet is accounted for in the regional plan. So we have a lot of information on that to share with you today. But I want to just give a little bit of background information on what the regional plan is, because it's really a lot of things. We call it the blueprint for how the region will grow, how the transportation system will develop. It has to look out 20 years. Our plan goes out to 2050. There are a number of federal laws and state laws that we have to comply with, and I'll go over some of the major ones in a moment. But we have to update the plan every year, and we have to use the latest data and planning assumptions. That was really important with the 2025 plan, that we did a lot of data collection because post-pandemic travel behavior has changed so much. So we really wanted to make sure that our transportation models were based off of the newest and latest kind of travel trends in the region, and not just for passenger vehicles, but for commercial vehicles as well. So we did a lot of regional surveys, household travel survey. We looked at commercial vehicle travel. That's changed a lot. We all do a lot of online shopping, have a lot of deliveries made to our homes. So we needed to make sure we were accounting for that. Telework. We did a telework survey of both employers and commuters. So the regional plan was really based off of all of this new data. The regional plan is not just a transportation plan. We also have to look at land use. We have to look at air quality, the environment. It's comprehensive. It's in fact 3 plans combined into one. So it's the federal regional transportation plan and the state required regional comprehensive plan and sustainable communities strategy. We also have to include a comprehensive financial plan, and both Michelle and Susan are the brains behind that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But we have to demonstrate how we can pay for everything that's in the plan. And that's not just the new projects. That's how are we going to pay for the operations and maintenance of everything that we have today. And it's not just transportation projects. It's the grant programs that we administer. It's the debt that we have to pay off. So that financial plan includes all of that. So ultimately, the regional plan cannot be a wish list of projects, right? We have to demonstrate that they're feasible, reasonable, the region could pay for them. Okay. Major requirements. They typically fall into these 3 categories. So I'll start first with equity and environmental justice. We have to comply with Title VI. We have to demonstrate how we will reduce pollution and we will improve transportation for disadvantaged communities. And to do that, we have to conduct a social equity analysis. We also have to develop a public involvement plan that shows how we will engage disadvantaged communities in the plan development process and make sure that we're getting input from those communities. We'll talk a little bit about some of the equity measures later in the presentation. Air quality. So we have to comply with the Clean Air Act. In our region, we are not conforming. Our air quality is worse than federal standards. So there's extra steps that we have to go through to demonstrate how the proposed projects in the plan won't worsen air quality or create any new air quality violations. And then the last category is around greenhouse gas emissions and vehicle miles traveled. And this really falls under Senate Bill 375, which is a state law. And that requires us to demonstrate how we will measurably reduce GHG by reducing VMT by 19% per capita by 2035 from 2005 levels. That was a mouthful, so I'm just going to say that one more time. We have to demonstrate how we will reduce greenhouse gas emissions from 2005 levels by 2035 by 19% per capita. What makes this so difficult is that it's really based on vehicle miles traveled, so we don't get to take credit for electrification. Senate Bill 375 was really about how land use patterns and transportation investments would come together to reduce the amount that people drive and encourage them to use transportation alternatives. So this plan, we've got 10 years to do that. It's a 2025 plan. By 2035, we have to show how we'll get people out of their cars and using other modes. It's very difficult to do. But I am happy to say that we have done all of the modeling work. We have approval from CARB. CARB is the agency that is the regulatory agency over Senate Bill 375. So they've approved our modeling results, and we have achieved that 19%, just barely. 19.2% roughly is where we're at, but that's very good news for the region that we were able to meet that. For those of you who were around back in 2018, you know that we ended up having to get state legislation to get an extension because our 2019 plan was not going to meet that target. So we had to go back to the drawing board, and we developed the 2021 plan in a very short time frame and was able to achieve it. So, all right. There has been a lot of input and outreach involved in the development of this plan. Our board wanted to be much more involved in this plan than they had in past, so we did 7 workshops with our board on pretty much every step of the plan development process. And these weren't just presentations to the board, they were actually active workshops where they were drawing on maps and providing feedback to us on their priorities for the regional plan. We also did 8 community workshops all around the region, had great participation. We did regular workshops with our working groups and our policy advisory committee meetings. We just had a joint working group and a joint policy advisory committee meeting earlier in the month. We contract with community-based organizations all over the region, 18 of them. They also help us with doing outreach, in particular to those disadvantaged communities, our social equity communities. We did a lot of online research. We got more than 2,000 comments online. We had a mapping tool where people could drop pins and leave comments on projects and things that they'd like to see in their community. All of that feedback helped to inform the development of the transportation network. Now, obviously, I can't tell you all the thousands of comments that we got, but we can summarize some of the key themes that we heard. Everybody wants to reduce traffic and improve roadways, but I will tell you there are a lot of different opinions about how we should do that. There are some communities that don't want to see any roadway widening whatsoever, and they want us to reduce congestion through making the best use of our existing infrastructure and providing more transportation alternatives. And there's other communities that really want us to invest in roadways and to expand our roadway system. So differing opinions about how to address congestion. We hear a lot about transit. People want it to be faster, they want it to be more frequent, they want it to go to the places that they need to go to, and they don't want to wait 20 years for that. They want those improvements now, particularly parts of the region that are really dependent upon transit. They don't have other options for getting around the region. We've been hearing more and more about school connections and the desire for us to connect the public transit system to schools to really complement our Youth Opportunity Pass program and address the fact that we have a lot of schools that don't have school bus service in the region. We've heard a lot more from our unincorporated and rural communities on this plan. They also want better mobility options, transit options, circulators, shuttles, and things in their community, and of course, roadway and safety improvements on our rural corridors. Microtransit is very popular. We've sort of branded flexible fleets as on-demand shared mobility, and everybody wants to see those services in their community. We've heard a lot about active transportation and the need for safer infrastructure, like Mario was talking about, folks who really want to be able to bike, but they don't necessarily feel comfortable now and want us to improve active transportation. And then, of course, first last mile or first few miles, last few miles is a topic that comes up a lot when we're doing outreach. So all of that led us to developing an initial concept for the transportation network that we released last spring. And I don't expect you to make any sense out of this messy map here, but it is a complete network of managed lanes on all of our major corridors, complemented by a very robust rapid transit network. And we've actually started planning some of those rapid lines recently. 6 of them have been funded for planning by the board of directors. The little shaded areas are where we have the microtransit, the neighborhood shuttles, the circulators. And then, of course, there are no active transportation projects on this map because it would just be far too messy, but you do have sub-regional maps in your packet so you can see more details on the active transportation network there. We look at 2 kind of phases in the regional plan. Those projects that can be built by 2035, those are the dark solid lines, and then the projects that can be built by 2050. We don't do year by year phasing at the regional plan level, but you'll see that a lot of the investments in that first 10 years are rapid projects and transit projects that can ensure that we meet that 19% VMT reduction target in the plan. I mentioned that it's not just projects in the regional plan, but we also have programs and policies, and they're really important. The infrastructure alone doesn't get us to that 19% target, doesn't help us to meet our air quality requirements as standalone projects. So most of these policies and program areas existed in the 2021 plan, but we do have 2 new ones that I'll call your attention to. Public health, our board adopted a resolution asking to have public health be a policy in the regional plan. And this is related to both improving air quality and increasing physical activity. And then Vision Zero. So our board adopted a Vision Zero resolution several years ago, and I think you've all seen the Vision Zero strategy and action plan and safety dashboard that we developed, and now it's also a policy in the regional plan. But the other program and policy areas are things like our grant programs, our smart growth land use work that we do, climate, clean transportation investments that we make, our youth opportunity pass program, our TDM program, all of that's captured here. Okay, so after the initial concept was released and we got feedback from the board and working groups and our policy advisory committee members, we started testing it in the model to see if it would meet the requirements that we have. And this is a really simplistic kind of graphic depiction of how we do the modeling work. But basically, the transportation network, the land use strategy, the policies and programs are modeled so we can forecast and simulate travel in the future. And then those outputs go into an air quality model that's provided to us by CARB, and that allows us to see if we've met our federal air quality requirements and our GHG requirements. And then we have to have all of that approved by the ARB, which they did, as I mentioned earlier. Our model is also peer-reviewed by national experts, so it's really top-notch. We're recognized as having some of the best modeling tools in the country at SANDAG. When we were done with the modeling, there were a few tweaks that we needed to make to the transportation network. You'll see this map doesn't look too much different from the one I showed you earlier, and that's because those were pretty minor tweaks. Some of it was based on feedback we got from the board. So for example, the board asked us to remove the toll from the SR 125 in the early years of the plan. We did that, but that meant that we didn't have the revenues to invest in managed lanes on the SR 125 anymore. So that managed lane project came out. The board also wanted more shuttle microtransit service areas. And so we added those to the plan as well. And then we made some refinements to transit routes where we had redundancies, where we didn't necessarily see the ridership. The purple line is one of those examples. In the 2021 plan, that was a commuter rail line, meaning higher speed, kind of like the Lausanne corridor. But when we started doing the feasibility study and initial planning for the purple line, we saw that it didn't really have enough ridership to warrant that. So we have now made that a light rail line in the 2025 regional plan, and it's going to be phased because we don't have the resources to be able to construct that whole line within the first early years of the plan. Now, this is the TransNet projects and how they are captured in the regional plan. So you have a detailed matrix in your staff report that shows the differences and similarities between the TransNet ordinance projects and the regional plan. This slide here just shows you in green the projects that have been completed, the projects that are in progress. So that means some planning has started on that project. So they're planning, design, environmental, or we're nearing construction. And then the, I guess, purplish color are future projects that we've not started yet. So the highlighted, the shaded corridors, these are the corridors that have the same number of lanes as proposed in the ordinance. The difference is, though, that we're assuming any lanes that we have on these corridors are managed lanes. Now, there's many flavors of managed lanes. Managed lanes aren't one thing, right? Basically, a managed lane is rules about how a lane is used. So it could be priced like an express lane, it could be a truck climbing lane, it could be an evacuation lane. We have a combination of those in the regional plan, but these are the corridors where there's no differences in the number of lanes. These are the corridors where we are converting general purpose lanes to managed lanes, and that was not part of the TransNet ordinance. And there are a number of reasons for that. One is that many of these communities don't want widening in their communities, but also it's very difficult to achieve the VMT reduction that we need to when we're widening roadways. So we're making best use of the infrastructure. And then, of course, as you've heard in previous presentations, we don't have money to do the projects the same way that they were originally envisioned in the TransNet ordinance. And so we've scaled back the scope of some of those projects. I should also say that our latest forecast and data suggests that the population is coming down in the future. In all past plans, we've always assumed that the population was going to increase and traffic would increase. That's not the case anymore, and that's not unique to the San Diego region. That's across the state of California. So when we do our modeling, traffic volumes are coming down too. So we don't necessarily need the roadway expansion projects that we thought we needed 20 years ago.
Antoinette, I think it's important to highlight that that the conversions on the prior are further in the future. They're not something that people are going to see immediately, right?
There's conversions in the first 10 years of the plan.
Yeah.
There are, but
not
yeah,
all of them.
yeah,
not the
HOV
entire-
conversions first.
Exactly.
So 805 HOV conversion to hot, the 5 HOV conversion to hot.
That's correct. You know, managing that
Mhm.
expectation that people don't think that a single occupancy vehicle is going to be immediately changed. It's
No.
some of the HOV lanes will be converted to another type of managed lane
Mhm.
scenario.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on the 52, for example, we're adding a truck climbing lane, but we're also converting a general purpose lane to a managed lane for rapid projects. So these are the corridors where we have fewer lanes than the ordinance proposed. And again, I explained the reasons for that. It's both cost prohibitive and the data shows that we don't need that number of lanes in the future any longer. All of these corridors have transit projects proposed, and all of those transit projects are either completed or planning is underway. And then the connectors are all in the regional plan. There is one exception. The 56 and 5 connector is in what we call the unconstrained network. That means we don't have the resources to construct it within the timeframe of the plan. But if funding were to become available, it's still listed as a project that we'd like to pursue in the future. And then, of course, we have many, many border access improvements, the Otay Mesa East project, SR 11, 905, all of those projects are included in the plan. The model also produces performance measures that demonstrate how well the transportation network and the programs and policies are achieving the goals that were set for the plan. Our board set these goals here around a convenient, equitable, healthy, and safe transportation system when we started developing the plan. We provided a sample of some of the performance measures in the staff report that you have today, but we're trending in the right direction with all of them, and that's really good news. So in terms of convenience, we see decreased travel times for both people and goods across all of the corridors in the future. We see increased access to basic needs, so education, jobs, healthcare, transit across the region. We see an increase in transportation-related physical activities. So 20% of the population will be spending at least 20 minutes daily on transportation-related activity. And that might be because we've made such a huge investment in active transportation infrastructure in the regional plan. 86% or so of the population will be within a quarter mile of one of those facilities. Mentioned the cost or the financial strategy that we develop, and it has to cover all of these things. As I mentioned, it's comprehensive. The cost of the plan is less than the 2021 plan. Our board asked us to try to bring that down. So the 2021 plan was about 163 billion. This plan is coming in between 125 and 133 billion, and that's new projects and of course operating and maintaining what we have today and paying off all of our debt. And there are many, many funding sources. You have another attachment in your staff report that shows all of the different funding sources that we're assuming will cover that cost in the future. So I mentioned we're about to release the plan. We're expecting to do that towards the end of May. And then we do have to do an environmental impact report for the regional plan, and we'll be releasing that shortly thereafter. Then once we put it out for public comment, we'll address all of those public comments, and then we'll go back to the board in the November, December timeframe with a final plan that we'll ask them to adopt so that we can submit it to the federal and state regulatory agencies, hopefully for approval. So that was a lot of information. I imagine that you have a lot of questions. I'm happy to answer those today. I failed to introduce Cecily Taylor. Cecily is really the brains behind the transportation network. She does all of the work to bring the projects together. And so if you have any really technical or detailed questions, she's here to support with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that excellent report. Are there any public comments?
Thank you, Chair. There are no public comments.
Okay. Are there any member comments?
Yeah, go ahead.
I had my first one. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. That was great. And I'm really looking forward to digging into that. But the first question I have is on the VMT. I'm involved in some statewide groups, and I'm starting to hear pushback on that, especially from different MPOs and districts. And I'm wondering, are you hearing anything like that, or like what do you see as the future of?
Yes, we're part of the pushback.
345?
Many of us are.
Yeah. Okay.
Because VMT as a proxy for GHG isn't great. It's not ideal. And we would like to get credit for all of the investments that we're making in clean transportation. We're doing a lot to make sure that we have EV charging infrastructure. We're developing EV rebate programs. We're trying to help the state meet their targets for that transition to electrification, and not getting credit for that is really challenging. Also, you can be doing everything right, like we are with all of the transit projects and good sustainable land use pattern, but people are still going to choose to drive some, right? And so VMT isn't really an ideal measure. Maybe looking at things like the increase in transit ridership and mode share, and the land that's preserved in the region would be a better way to measure, how land use and transportation are creating a more sustainable region. So that's really where the pushback is coming from.
But the plan right now, you just have to stick with the 19%
Correct.
increase and assume.
Yeah, but CARB is getting
gonna
ready
stay.
to go through the target setting process. So every 8 years, they reevaluate the targets and propose new targets. That's why we didn't meet the target in 2019, because while we were developing that plan, they increased the target on us. And so we're asking them, instead of, going about it in the way that they have in the past, let's take a fresh look at what's working really well with SB 375 and maybe fix some things that aren't working so well, so that we don't find ourselves in that position.
In like on my report, the first paragraphs that I read here in my report was, we went to Sacramento and we met with the governor's office on housing and GHG reduction target SB 375, and we also went to CalCOG, California Council of Governments, which are the other MPOs. And that was one of the specific items that we've been traveling. The spirit is SB 375 was approved close to 20 years ago. We need to sit down. We have the same consensus. We all want a better environment for our communities. So let's sit down and let's look at what worked, and let's look at what's not working, and let's refine that, and let's set up some realistic targets that we can all meet so we can have a better environment. So that is how we're presenting it. we call it the big four MPOs, LA, San Diego, the Bay Area, and Sacramento. We are proposing this at Calcoc, and we are proposing it to the administration and to whoever has a friendly ear for us to hear us. We're not trying to change the world. We're just saying, hey, something was planned 20 years ago. Let's see if what worked and let's see what didn't work. And the world's different today than from 20 years ago. And like Antoinette, we are doing a lot of things that are helping the state meets their goals, but yet we're not getting credited for it. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Mario. I know the Mobility 21 group that was just up at Sacramento last month had that as an agenda item too, with all our legislators. So thanks. Okay, well, I don't want to hog, but one last question, just on the future population decrease overall, meaning less traffic maybe, and then the idea of more, like 20% more, I think I heard that right, active transportation use and things like that. Is that looking out 25 years, or do you see that happening fairly soon, or what's the timeline on that?
No, that's looking out, you know, in the later years of the plan, right? It takes a long time to build all of these projects and put all of these services in place. So those are the results that you see when we've really gotten much farther along with those projects.
Do we have any other comments from our members? Lorraine, go ahead.
Thank you very much for the detailed work. I know there's a lot of behind the scenes, and managing and accounting for the community input, et cetera, is no small feat. Just relative to meeting the goals from a CARB GHG perspective, from a theoretical or a forecasted standpoint, how is that factored in once the projects are incorporated, and then how does that get released and made public on how SANDAG is doing to meet those goals?
Are you asking on a project by project basis?
Well,
Or
just once projects are actually incorporated and built, how is that incorporated into meeting those goals?
Well, so the model is based on, we do the modeling with every plan, right? And the network is updated with every plan. So the model is assuming the latest transportation infrastructure projects that have been implemented. So it would be accounted for when we do the next plan if we've completed that project in that time frame.
Okay, I'm just thinking from a constraint standpoint on what funding is going to be available, and then what SANDAG forecasts, and then what actually gets built. You know, sometimes it doesn't always match.
Yeah.
And making sure that we stay in compliance
Yeah.
for those goals.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, that's it. Did you have anything, Simon?
Thank you for the presentation. It's a lot of work and a lot of information. You mentioned some of the changes from the previous plan. Was there anything that was eliminated or dropped from the previous plan?
Yes, off the top of my head, I mentioned the purple line not being completely dropped, but just
Right.
re-envisioned in this plan. We have more rapid projects in this plan, so that's an increase, less rail projects in this plan. Rail is more expensive, it's less flexible, it takes longer to implement, and what we were really hearing from communities is that they needed more mobility solutions now. So we went kind of all in on rapid. Some of the roadway projects were rescoped as well. So, in the last plan, in a lot of the corridors, we were adding a managed lane and then converting a general purpose lane. In some corridors, there's no longer the add because, again, resources and data didn't demonstrate the need for that.
Okay. So with all of these changes, were there anything specific that was identified in TransNet that would require an amendment? And maybe this is a big, broad question.
Oh,
I'm just
They're,
wondering.
that's definitely, yeah, the projects are different. So as I walked
Yeah,
through,
yeah.
all of the corridors we're investing in, but,
Yeah.
you know, where we said maybe we were adding general purpose lanes, there are no general purpose lane ads
Okay.
in the plan. That would be very difficult for us to achieve VMT, GHG if we were doing that. In some cases, we have fewer lanes. So yes, those changes, my understanding from legal counsel is that they would require an amendment to the TransNet
Was
ordinance.
there anything in rail that was included in TransNet? I don't recall.
Rail, I mean, beyond the low sand corridor, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, and improvements to every trolley corridor,
Just,
but.
yes.
mhm.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. My next question is, on your slide where you show the estimated cost of implementation, you have reduced the cost to now a range of 125 to 133 billion. Was there, and this is only 2024 cost, was there any analysis done as to, and I know you have a wide source of federal and state and other types of funding and grants and things like that. Is there a way to determine how much local funding would be required to deliver this plan? And how does that compare to the TransNet funding that may be available for the next 20 years or something like that?
Yeah, so when we do the revenues applied to the cost, we do break it down by local, state, and federal. We have it kind of two buckets, what we know is coming in, and then revenue that we would additionally need
Okay.
to fulfill the revenue constraint. So in the 2024 dollars, we have approximately 67 billion of local funding. Of that, TransNet is about 12.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah, I saw the table with the
Mhm.
funding sources. Does that include the two future sales tax measures? Like
yeah,
the
so in that
120
table,
and
yeah, so that table that says future local tax, that'll be additional tax measures that would be coming forward. And
Yeah.
then there's also one that MTS will be bringing forward as well.
Okay, that's what I was leading to. I just
Mhm.
wanted to know, there's obviously a big gap.
There is, correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, so this is all wonderful and, it's great to have the plan, but without local funding, a lot of this won't take place. So,
Correct.
okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? I have something in the back of my mind. I don't know how to quite put this. When you started your report with, I love the way you had organized it, where you put the goals of like what are our requirements, what do we need to adhere to, and an SB 375 obviously being the top one. And accordingly came down and explained how these priorities were made and the plan was put together. And obviously, we're all talking about funding and where all these different sources of funding that needs to come. And I keep thinking about the federal funding and how the world is different from when the SB 375 was mandated, and how all the ways that we thought we could be getting federal funding has changed. I don't know how that might work out, but it's just kind of in the back of my mind, and I don't know if it's in the back of your minds, is that would that affect the way this plan comes together?
Probably not this plan, but the next plan, right? So this plan, we're basing the assumptions on what we know today and won't be making any significant changes at this point. But the great news is we update the plan every 4 years, and we'll know a lot more about what's happening federally with the funding, and we'll be able to make those changes in the next plan.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other comments? No? Okay, but thank you so much. It was a great report, very enlightening. I think, well, that is the end of our meeting today. And next month, yes, the new location. No,
It'll be at the new building.
at the new building.
We'll send you further information.
Okay, so we'll adjourn, and the next ITAC meeting will be April 9th, 9:30 at the new location. Thanks, everyone. Thank you. Thank you.